Guys, I'm Roderick, aka Rodman, and welcome back to another video. If you like retro video game content and gameplay videos, don't forget to leave a like, comment, and subscribe for more content just like this. In this video, we're going to be talking about why Final Fantasy VIII is widely considered to be the worst Final Fantasy among the main entries, and why it's considered a black sheep in the series. So let's get right into the video. First things first, I want to say I don't believe Final Fantasy VIII is the worst in the series. I do believe Final Fantasy II is the worst in the series, but I will make a separate video about that. But starting off with story elements and characters and whatnot, a lot of people did not like the story of Final Fantasy VIII. I believe Square or whoever made the story kind of set themselves up for a disaster, because any story that has heavily to do with time travel and a lot of emphasis of things going on, stuff going on in the past and stuff going on in the future is affecting the present, it gets really sloppy. The story is very convoluted and confusing, but I don't think that's reason enough to say this game is the worst, because Final Fantasy, like any Final Fantasy game, you could take a look at 12, 10, 13, those games like that, those stories are very confusing. But once you get a good concept around it, it's a very good story. Not every story has to be, cut and dry, get the crystals, right? But a lot of people did not like the story of Final Fantasy VIII. But the main problem when it comes to story and characters were the characters. A lot of people hated the characters in Final Fantasy VIII. They thought Zell was a loudmouth idiot. They hated Squall, who was the main character of the game. And that's already a bad sign. When people hate the main character, that's a recipe for disaster. They thought he was an edgy, cringe emo boy who they tried to make a Cloud 2.0. That's what a lot of people think. They saw the positive reception that Cloud had, and they said, hey, what if he did him but more? And it was an utter failure. Selphie, she's an idiot. Cypher, he's an idiot. Quistis has no personality. Rinoa, a lot of people think Rinoa is very annoying. So a lot of people did not like the characters. They thought Ultimecia at the end was the ultimate just like bullcrap move. It's almost like in Naruto where they had another villain after Madara. Like, what? That makes no sense. But the story is convoluted. A lot of people didn't like the story or the characters. But that's not even the main problem. The main problem is the gameplay. Now, I've played every single Final Fantasy game, and like I said before, I don't think Final Fantasy VIII is anywhere close to being the worst Final Fantasy game. But some of these gameplay design choices are terrible. And let's go ahead and start off with the least and build up to the greatest. So one big flaw is the weapon system. The weapon system is absolutely terrible. If you don't know how the weapon system usually works in Final Fantasy, you go a little bit, you start off with your base weapons, you do X, Y, and Z, you can steal a few weapons here and there. You go to a town, you go to the armor shop and the weapon shop, you upgrade your weapons. And you do that for the entire game until, you find the uber powerful weapons in chests and, super bosses and whatnot. But for the most part, you're buying your weapons from shops. Not in Final Fantasy VIII. Final Fantasy VIII, you have one weapon, and you have to upgrade that weapon by finding different materials. And not only can you not upgrade the weapon if you don't have the magazine that tells you what the upgrade is, you also have to, or the weapons, they barely give you any stat increasements except for the ultimate weapon. Now, the ultimate weapons in this game are actually pretty damn good. Lionheart is broken. Sophie Strange's vision is very good. But All those other items before, weapons before that are very forgettable. Yeah, they give you extra limit breaks and stuff like that, but who cares? Who cares? This game isn't very difficult, so it's not like you're gonna need those things anyway. But it's very broken. You can get the Lionheart in disc 1, like halfway through this disc 1 you can have the ultimate weapons. So what's the point of the weapon system? It's terrible. A lot of times you're gonna have to play triple triad to get some items. It is a terrible card game that everybody hates. They did improve that game in Final Fantasy IX though, which is very much appreciated, but that's pretty much it for the weapon system. Now, drawing magic is the second thing that a lot of people hated. Sitting in random fights and boss fights, getting completely destroyed by the monster, but you're drawing magic because you don't have magic points. You don't learn magic. You have to acquire magic from enemies. And not only are some magic missable, some guardian forces are missable because you can only get those from drawing from the bosses. It's a really terrible idea, and this kind of segues into the probably the worst thing of gameplay mechanic about this game: junctioning. So remember what I just said about drawing magic. You can hold 100 of something, as you see on the screen right now. You can hold 100 of a spell, but level ups don't do anything for you in this game. So that means that the junction mechanic comes into play. You have to junction, or pretty much like bond magic with your stats to increase your stats. But if you use that magic, your stats go down permanently until you draw more of that same magic. For example, if I put Curaga to my health and I have 9,999 health, and I use 10 Curagas, my health will permanently be decreased to around 8,000 or so until I restock up on Curagas, which means more time drawing and whatnot. Those are the main gameplay elements that people didn't like. A lot of people also didn't like the fact that you had to be in critical health mode to use your limit breaks, unless you use hero drinks or auras or stuff like that. In Final Fantasy 7, limit breaks, you can be at full health and you can still do a limit break because you have a limit gauge. Fortunately enough, limit breaks do take priority in Final Fantasy 8, just like they did in 7, which means that you will get the limit break off before the enemy. But that's pretty much it for gameplay. The main things that people didn't like about gameplay. Now I'm going to talk about how I don't believe that Final Fantasy 8 is the worst. Is the Final Fantasy 8 very different? It is. But not every game can be Final Fantasy 7. I think Final Fantasy 8 does have a pretty good story if you were to take the time to like thoroughly understand what's going on. Yeah, it has some iffy time travel spots, but it does check out. When you dive deeper into the characters, you realize, especially Squall, you gotta realize he is the way he is for a reason, not just because he's an edgy emo boy, right? But I do definitely understand why people don't like him, though. Like I said before, I do believe that Final Fantasy 2 is the worst Final Fantasy game. And just to clarify right quick, when I mean worst, I just mean like this at the bottom of the list. It just ranks last. Do I mean these games are bad? No, these games are not bad. These are some of the greatest games ever made. But it's Final Fantasy, so there's going to have to be a best, there's going to have to be a worst. And you have to hold these games to a different standard as well. I mean, we think about it, Final Fantasy VIII at the end of the day is one of the greatest RPGs ever made, but it's going to have its flaws. But that's pretty much going to wrap it up for this video. Tell me what you guys think about Final Fantasy VIII in the comment section. Did you enjoy it? Did you not like it? What's your favorite Final Fantasy game? If you like retro video gaming content and gameplay videos, don't forget to leave a like, comment, subscribe. We're very close to hitting 1,000 subscribers by the end of the year. Ramen out. Peace.